I never believed in being truly alone until that night. The apartment was unusually quiet that evening. Normally, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint rattle of the street outside, and the occasional creak of the building settling made the place feel alive. But tonight, everything seemed muted, as if the world itself had been swallowed by darkness. My roommate was out of town, leaving me alone for the first time in weeks. At first, it was a relief, peaceful, a chance to enjoy solitude without distractions. I settled into the living room, the TV casting a dim, flickering glow across the walls. I'd planned a simple night watch, a few episodes, grab a snack, maybe call a friend later. The comfort of routine gave me a sense of safety I hadn't realized I'd craved. That's when I first heard it, a soft, hesitant whisper. My name, Michael. I froze mid-breath, the word hanging in the air like a shadow. My pulse spiked, and a sudden chill crawled up my spine. I told myself it was my imagination, that my mind was playing tricks in the quiet. Maybe the building was settling. Maybe the wind rattled a loose window. Rational explanations, logical answers, they were all I had. I tried to focus on the TV to drown it out. Then it came again, clearer, closer. Michael. This time, I couldn't ignore it. The whisper was deliberate, almost curious, brushing past the edges of my consciousness. I felt my heart hammer against my ribs, echoing in the hollow apartment. I stood slowly, trying to steady myself, and decided to check the rooms. The kitchen, empty. The bathroom, empty. My bedroom, empty. Everything looked normal to normal. Then I noticed the hallway outside the living room. It seemed darker than it should. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching unnaturally across the walls. I blinked, telling myself they were just shadows, shapes created by the TV glow. But they moved, slowly, deliberately, shifting from one side of the hallway to the other, as if pacing, watching. I swallowed hard. Hello, my voice sounded foreign, swallowed by the quiet. No response, just the whisper, again, softer, almost playful. Michael. I froze. I felt the air grow colder, like a faint breeze brushing against my neck. Goosebumps prickled along my arms. I wanted to convince myself it was nothing, but I knew. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the couch, holding it like a lifeline. The apartment suddenly felt impossibly large and suffocating at the same time. Every creak of the floor, every tap of settling wood made me jump. The whisper continued, now almost teasing, almost ... amused. I edged toward the hallway, each step measured, deliberate. The scraping sound started to slow, deliberate scraping along the walls, or maybe the floor. I couldn't tell. My chest tightened. Panic clawed at my throat. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted. I took another step. The scraping stopped. Silence, then breathing. Not mine. Slow, deliberate. Close enough that I could feel its presence pressing against me. I tried to see, but my eyes strained in the dim light. Shadows stretched and twisted, merging with corners, growing darker, deeper. Then I saw it, or at least a shape just for a second. I stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. The sudden crash echoed through the apartment, and the whisper paused. Absolute silence. My mind raced. I sank to the floor, bat clutched in shaking hands. Minutes passed. Hours, maybe. The silence was heavy, suffocating. I wanted to call someone, anyone. My phone was upstairs. I didn't dare move. I pressed myself against the floor, trying to disappear, hoping it hadn't noticed me. Then the whisper returned, right by my ear. Michael. I bolted upright, swinging the bat in blind terror. The living room was empty. Nothing, but I could feel it. Watching, waiting, patience wrapped in shadow. The sense of being observed pressed into my chest like a heavy weight. I backed away toward the kitchen, heart hammering. Every corner seemed darker than before, every shadow deeper, more solid. I tried to breathe slowly, to think. Rational explanations. Burglars. No. Friends. Impossible. The doors were locked, the windows shut. Yet, here it was, moving in ways that defied reason. I crouched behind the kitchen counter, listening. The whisper paused. Silence. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it someone I knew? Something I couldn't see? The air around me felt thick, charged, like static before a storm. Every nerve in my body screamed to flee, to escape the apartment. But where could I go? Then, from the darkness of the hallway, I heard a faint, deliberate shuffle. Just enough to let me know I wasn't imagining this. Something moved, just out of sight, pacing, waiting. I gripped the bat tighter, trying to summon courage I didn't have. I told myself to stay calm, to breathe, to think rationally, but my body refused to listen. The whisper came again, soft, low, teasing, "Michael." And in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. This presence knew me. It knew my fears. It knew my name. I didn't know what it wanted or how long it had been watching. But one thing was clear: I wasn't safe. Not here, not in my own home. And I had no idea what would happen when I took the next step. I stayed frozen in the living room, bat clutched tightly, ears straining for the faintest sound. My heartbeat pounded so loudly it felt like it could be heard in every corner of the apartment. The whisper had stopped for now, but the sense of being watched pressed down on me like a physical weight. I didn't dare move. Every instinct screamed that one wrong step would give away my position. I told myself it was imagination. It has to be. The rational part of my brain fought to stay in control, but the fear crawling along my spine ignored logic entirely. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, moving in ways they shouldn't. Every time I glanced at the hallway, I thought I saw a shape lingering just out of the corner of my eye, a tendril of darkness that disappeared when I tried to focus. I edged closer to the hallway, every step calculated. The air was cold, but not from the temperature. It was a deep, unnatural cold that settled into my bones. I gripped the bat tighter, and I could feel my knuckles whiten. My thoughts raced, each one worse than the last. Is it inside? Is it waiting for me to move? Then I heard it again, a soft scrape, low and deliberate, moving from one end of the hallway to the other. My stomach nodded. The scraping wasn't random. It was pacing, calculated, taunting me. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself I could handle this. But fear had taken over every part of me. My rational mind, the one that told me I was safe, was losing. I took a shaky step forward. The scrape stopped, silence, and then the whisper, "Michael." It came from above me. No, not above. Everywhere, around me, behind me. I spun, bat raised, scanning every corner of the living room. The shadows shifted in response, stretching and twisting as if they were alive, as if they were testing me. I felt dizzy, like I was losing control of my own senses. I backed toward the kitchen, my eyes never leaving the hallway. Then I noticed something else, small movements in the shadows, faint, almost imperceptible, but enough to make my skin crawl. A corner of the hallway wall seemed to ripple, like black smoke moving against the grain of reality. I froze. I tried calling out, my voice cracking. "Who's there?" Nothing, just the whisper, soft, close, mocking. "Michael." My chest tightened. My knees felt weak. I wanted to run, to escape, but the hallway seemed endless, stretching further than it should. The apartment felt alive, breathing around me. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant hum of the fridge became amplified in my mind. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Okay," I told myself. "I'm calm. It's just shadows, just sounds, nothing more." But the scraping returned, closer this time, moving along the edge of the wall. The sound was deliberate, slow, methodical. Then the shadows moved again, this time more boldly. One shadow stretched out from the hallway, a dark tendril brushing against the living room wall. It paused, almost like it was tasting the air, waiting for my next move. I could feel it, more than see it. Something deliberate, intelligent, patient, and the whisper, ever so soft, now almost playful, teased me again. "Michael." I spun toward the hallway, bat raised. My muscles were tense, every nerve screaming to react. The shadow in the corner twitched. Then, just for a second, it detached, forming a thin, black tendril that stretched toward me. My breath caught in my throat. It vanished, gone, but I knew it hadn't left. I stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. The crash echoed through the apartment, and for a moment, silence fell. Then, a soft, slow shuffle coming from the direction of the hallway. I could feel it pacing now, circling, always just out of reach, always just out of sight. I backed up toward the couch, crouching behind it. My heart was racing uncontrollably, my ears straining for every sound. The whisper returned, soft, close, right at my ear. "Michael," I yelped, swinging the bat blindly. The living room appeared empty, but I could feel it. The presence, watching, waiting. I could almost sense it, leaning toward me, curious, like a predator, toying with its prey. I knew I couldn't stay there. I needed to get somewhere safe. My bedroom, upstairs, seemed like the only option. I bolted toward the stairs, every shadow along the way twisting and stretching in unnatural ways. My pulse thundered in my ears. Every step made the floorboards creak beneath me. I didn't dare look back. As I reached the staircase, the whisper came again, louder this time, echoing, "Michael, don't leave me." I froze mid-step. My foot hovered over the first stair. I could feel the darkness reaching for me, a suffocating presence pressing against my chest. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The shadows seemed to gather at the foot of the stairs, forming shapes I couldn't identify. Faces, maybe, or the suggestion of them. I forced myself forward, gripping the railing tightly, and ran up the stairs, bat raised defensively. Every step felt like an eternity. When I reached the landing, I paused, catching my breath. The hallway was empty, or at least, it appeared that way. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching toward me like black fingers. I made it to my bedroom door and slammed it shut, locking it with trembling hands. I pressed myself against it, bat ready, listening. Silence. The quiet was heavier than the loudest noise, filled with anticipation. My mind raced. I tried to tell myself it was over, that I had barricaded myself safely. But I knew, deep down, that wasn't true. The whisper didn't return, but the presence did. I could feel it, patient, deliberate, waiting. The sense of being observed was overwhelming. Every nerve in my body screamed that this thing wasn't done with me, that it wouldn't be satisfied until it had claimed my attention entirely. I sank to the floor against the door, trying to slow my heartbeat, trying to think rationally, but nothing made sense anymore. Every shadow, every creak, every whisper of air felt like a threat. I was trapped in my own home, hunted by something unseen but deeply aware of me. I didn't know what it wanted, or how long it had been watching. I didn't even know what it was. All I knew was that I couldn't escape its attention, and when the night stretched on, I realized I wouldn't be able to sleep. Not until I knew it had left. But I knew it hadn't. The bedroom felt like a cage. Every nerve in my body was on fire. My heartbeat, a drum in my chest. I pressed myself flat against the door, bat in hand, listening to the apartment. Silence, absolute silence. But it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, oppressive, like the air itself was thick with anticipation. I tried to convince myself it had gone. Rational thoughts scrambled for dominance. Maybe it was a hallucination. Maybe I imagined the whispers and shadows. But deep down, I knew better. I had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable. I could feel it outside the door, patient, aware, like it was savoring the fear it had planted. Minutes dragged, hours or what felt like hours passed. Every sound made me jump. The faint hum of the refrigerator, the creak of a floorboard, the tapping of a vent cover. My mind ran through every possible explanation, and each one crumbled under the weight of instinctive fear. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate scrape from the hallway. Moving closer. I froze. The sound had no rhythm, no pattern, just an ominous, almost deliberate approach. My chest tightened, my palms slick with sweat. I gripped the bat tighter, knuckles white. I wanted to run, to escape, but the room felt smaller with each passing second. The shadows stretching into corners that didn't exist. The whisper returned, faint at first, teasing, "Michael." I swallowed hard. The sound was now all around me, impossible to locate. It was inside my head as much as it was in the room. I felt it pressing into my mind, probing my thoughts, learning my fears. It knows me. I couldn't shake the sensation that this presence was in just in my apartment. It was inside me, part of the air I breathed. I crawled to the window, desperate for a glimpse of the outside world, for proof that I wasn't completely alone. Darkness pressed against the glass, and for a brief second, I thought I saw a figure outside, watching from the shadows. Then it vanished. Of course it did. It never stayed long enough to be caught. That was the point, the torment. I backed away from the window, pressing myself into the corner of the room. Shadows seemed to gather there, stretching along the walls, like thick smoke moving against the pull of reality. My own reflection in the bedroom mirror startled me. For a brief second, I thought I saw something behind me, dark, faceless, patient. But when I turned, there was nothing. The whisper returned again, louder, closer, directly outside the door this time. "Michael, I can see you." My blood ran cold. I could feel the words pressing against me, almost tangible, heavy in the air. I pounded on the door with the bat, shouting, screaming, trying to force whatever it was to leave. But no sound came back, except the whisper, patient, unmoving, watching. I sank to the floor, bat still in hand, breathing hard. I tried to convince myself that day would come, that morning would bring relief, but I knew it wouldn't. This thing didn't leave. It waited, and it knew exactly how terrified I was. I tried to listen for patterns, the faintest sound of movement, a floorboard creaking in a predictable rhythm, maybe an opening or closing of a door, but nothing. Every sound that reached me was distorted, unnatural. The scrape of the floor, soft footsteps pacing, whispers in corners, murmurs that weren't there a moment ago. Everything was deliberately confusing, deliberately designed to break my mind. I wanted to escape. I considered jumping out the window, running to the street below, but I knew better. My instincts screamed that this presence wasn't bound by walls, floors, or doors. If I left the apartment, it would follow. It could reach me anywhere, and I was too scared to test that theory. The night stretched endlessly. Time lost meaning. My mind raced, but I couldn't think clearly. My eyes were trained on the door, every shadow on the wall, every corner of the room, anticipating movement. A sudden creak made me jump, and I thought I saw something cross the hallway outside the door. Something thin, shadowy, fleeting, and impossibly fast. I pressed myself flat against the wall, staring at the door, holding my breath. The whisper returned, now mocking, playful, almost echoing inside the room. "Michael, come out, let me see you." I shook my head, sobbing quietly. I wanted to run, to hide, to scream, but my body refused to cooperate. I was trapped, completely trapped, and I knew, somewhere in the shadows beyond the door, it was patient, deliberate, and aware of every fear, every hesitation, every heartbeat. I dared to take a step toward the door, just a small movement, and felt a shift in the air pressure, a presence brushing against the back of my neck. I froze. It was everywhere and nowhere. I couldn't see it, couldn't touch it, but I knew it was there, waiting for the right moment. Hours passed. I don't know how many. Each whisper, each shadow, each scrape made my mind fray. I talked to myself, reasoned with myself, tried to anchor myself in reality, but reality had become a blur. This wasn't just fear. This wasn't just imagination. This was something else entirely, something that watched, waited, and learned. Then, just before dawn, the whispers stopped. Silence fell over the apartment, heavy, suffocating, almost tangible. My body shook from adrenaline, exhaustion, and terror. I sat against the door for what felt like forever, waiting, listening, knowing that the night wasn't over. When the sun finally began to light the edges of the sky, the shadows retreated slightly. My apartment looked normal, familiar again, but the sense of being watched didn't leave. It lingered, cold, patient, waiting for the next night. And I knew, deep down, that it hadn't gone. It was still there, always there, watching, waiting. Dawn brought light, but not relief. The first rays of sun spilled through my bedroom window, painting the walls with pale, cold light. The shadows had retreated slightly, but the apartment still felt wrong, alive in a way I could not comprehend. Every corner, every hallway, every room seemed to pulse with the memory of the previous night. The whispers had stopped for now, but the presence lingered, watching, waiting. I dared to move from my corner, bat still in hand. My legs were stiff, my body trembling, but I had to see that I wasn't imagining this. I crept to the door, listening for any sound, any sign. The hallway was empty. The scrape and the whisper had vanished, yet the air felt thick, heavy, almost viscous. I ventured further into the apartment, each step slow, deliberate. The living room, once the place of my initial fear, looked normal. The lamp I had knocked over the night before sat on the floor, shade cracked, but otherwise untouched. The couch was still where it belonged. Nothing seemed out of place, yet every instinct screamed otherwise. I could still feel it. Every breath, every heartbeat, every nerve in my body screamed that I wasn't alone. I tried calling a friend, anyone, just to hear a voice outside my own. My hands shook as I dialed, the phone trembling. I spoke rapidly, trying to explain. I think someone or something is in my apartment. I stopped, realizing the words sounded absurd, even to me. The shadows didn't exist anymore in the daylight, and my rational mind wrestled with the memory of the night. Was it all imagination, stress, isolation? But then I heard it, soft, faint, almost imperceptible. A whisper just beyond the edge of comprehension, brushing against my mind. Michael. I froze. The rational part of my brain screamed for logic. There's no one there. Nothing could have survived in the bright light like that. But my instincts, the parts of me that had survived the previous night, knew better. I ran to the windows, peering out at the street below. Empty, normal, safe. But I knew better. Whatever had been in my apartment last night wasn't bound by walls. Shadows, whispers, presence didn't need doors or windows. It only needed me to be alone, and it would wait. Hours passed. I tried to sleep, tried to calm myself, but every sound, the fridge humming, the soft creak of settling wood, the occasional rustle of the city outside made me jump. Shadows seemed to creep along the edges of my vision, teasing, reminding me that I was never really alone. I kept the doors locked, the lights on, the bat within reach. Every noise, every fleeting shadow sent me into panic. I checked every room repeatedly, each time expecting to see movement just beyond the corner of my eye. I tried to convince myself I was safe. I tried to convince myself it had gone, but it hadn't. The whispers returned in the evening, softer now, deliberate. Sometimes they came from the walls, sometimes from the ceiling, sometimes from within my own head. Always patient, always aware, always saying my name, Michael. Sleep became impossible. Fear had taken residence in my mind. My apartment, once a sanctuary, had become a trap. Every creak, every movement, every shadow was a reminder. The presence had learned me. It knew my habits, my fears, my routines, and it waited for me to slip, even slightly, into vulnerability. Days passed, and I began noticing little things, small, subtle signs that someone or something was watching. Objects slightly moved, shadows lingered, just a moment longer than they should. The whisper, almost playful, called my name when I least expected it. I considered leaving, moving out, abandoning the apartment entirely. But even that idea didn't bring comfort. Deep down, I knew it didn't matter. It wasn't bound by walls, floors, or locks. Wherever I went, it would find me. It thrived on fear, on isolation, on the knowledge that it could reach me no matter what. And then, one night, I heard it, not a whisper this time, but a voice. Clear, deliberate, patient. Michael, I'm still here. I froze. The words didn't come from the hallway, the bedroom, or even the walls. They came from inside my head, soft, but undeniably there. I wanted to run, to escape, to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't get away from the feeling that it was all around me, watching, waiting. I realized then that the fear wasn't just about the night, or the shadows, or the whispers. It was about knowing that something unseen, intelligent, and patient had chosen me, that it would never leave, that it would wait indefinitely for my fear to grow, to intensify, to consume me completely. I sit here now, bat in hand, listening to every creak, every whisper of the wind, every shadow that moves just beyond my vision. The The presence hasn't returned fully tonight, but I know it will. Every night it watches. Every night it whispers. Every night it waits. And I know it will call my name again, because it knows me, and it will never stop